What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? Hey, thank you for hitting that play button. I want to talk about repurposing your content from your podcast because I believe this is the reason I think everyone should have a podcast, especially if you are an entrepreneur or a small business or big business. This is just a great way to stay engaged with your customers. Also, hopefully to add value, which I hope that this is going to do right now for you is add value, inspire you to start a podcast, but then also teach you. Maybe you already have one and you haven't thought about these things. And talking about repurpose, the reason that I even am doing this right now is because of a conversation that I had with Lindsey Miller, and I will send the link of that episode in the show notes or in the description, comments, or whatever. It'll be down below somewhere. The link will be available to you. You know where to find it. But I was like, oh my goodness, this is great content that I want to go deeper on, or maybe not spend a whole bunch of time, but just kind of just share some of the ideas with you around how you can repurpose them. And I'm just now starting to do some of this. Like I'm going to repurpose this, which I'm repurposing from a podcast by creating a quick blog where I'm just going to write out these things and put them in text, put them in a blog, and be able to have that on my website. Because another thing that Lindsey and I talked about was just the importance of talking to the robots, which goes back to search engine optimization. And the more content that you text-wise in the blog form, long form blogging will allow for the algorithm when it's searching your website to find all this different information around such a thing as repurposing the podcast. Now, one of the reasons this is important because I have a podcast. I want you to go listen to it, but also I would love to be able to help you with your podcast. If you're thinking about it, you don't know very much. I'm really interested in helping those early beginners, those people who have not started, just create a simple way for you to at least get in the game of podcasting and then kind of go from there. But let's talk about these. I got 7 ways that you can repurpose your podcast starting today. You can do this today. Like when you finish watching this, just go and do these 7 things. They're pretty simple. I challenge you over the next 30 days, if not today, but just over the next 30 days to implement these 7 things by repurposing your podcast with these 7 things, okay? So 1, just transcribe your podcast into a blog post or article. After my podcast with Lindsey Miller, I wrote out a blog post that you can go check out at heady.media. Just scroll down, click on blog, and you'll see it talking about marketing in 2023. She just shares 5 things, and I repurposed that as a blog. Number 2, the second thing that you can do is create social media posts or social media graphics. So any of the quotes or things that you highlight, you can do that by taking some of those things and creating graphics around it and using it as a carousel on Instagram and being able to share some of those things that way. Number 3, turn the podcast into a video by adding visual elements such as slides or footage. Again, if you go to my Instagram, heady.coleman, you will see that I've done some of this. Some of you are here right now because I created a reel around this repurposing your content, which came from the episode with Lindsey Miller, right? And so you're getting this, you can go see me in action doing this. And I'm just starting out. So for those of you who haven't done this, like I'm using myself as a test example of what this looks like just starting out. So it's not super polished or anything. I want to do this in a way that I feel like you can be like, oh, I can do this. Right now, I just grabbed my mic, jumped in front of the camera, wrote out my notes, and I'm just talking to the camera right now and hopefully adding value to you. So, or if you have not started your podcast, reach out to me. Let's talk. Let's see what we can do for you. And you can begin to do some of this because you're having challenges with creating social media content, right? Okay, here's another one. Create an email newsletter that includes a summary or highlights from the podcast, which I really love this. I need to really start doing this. I have an email list of a couple of 100 or 300 folks. I know that they're waiting for me because I went dormant. So now I got to figure out a way to keep in front of them. And a great way to do this is just, again, maybe even taking my blog post, making that the newsletter, sending that out because not all of them are going to come to my website, if any of them, right? And so I have access to them through their email. So that's another way. Here's the fifth thing: use the podcast as the basis for a workshop or presentation. So now what you may find, like I'm really interested in this repurposing. So I can take this, make it a workshop, invite people out, and maybe I'll make it a free workshop because now I'm just trying to see who I can help start a podcast, right? And then out of helping them start that podcast, I also want to make sure that they're successful in reaching the most people. And I think this is a great start, utilizing your podcast content to repurpose it in different ways and start doing a workshop or a presentation, a Zoom call, and doing some slides. This is a great way to do that. Number 6, create a series of short, bite-sized audio clips that focus on specific topics or takeaways from the podcast. Again, I did this as well. I just recently did this. If you go to Hetty.Coleman, go to the reel, you will see that I did 2 things that are needed to get your podcast started for 2023. I just made a video, put some text on it, and then it's not me in the video, it's just text. But I made it in a video format so I can make it as a reel. Number 7, use the podcast as the basis for a book or ebook. I'm really excited about doing something like this. And so I am currently in talks with somebody to help me with this ebook. That person is Lindsey Miller of The Content Journey. Again, this is all from one podcast episode where I'm just fired up doing all the things that derived from that, or I was inspired by from that podcast episode. And that's the reason podcasts are so valuable, or something that can really be a game changer for you, because essentially all I do is I interview people that I believe are achieving wins. And I just talk to them about, like, how are you doing that? Or if they're helping other people achieve their wins, how are you helping those people? Let's talk about those right things to be consistent in order to achieve that. So right now, what I'm saying to you is you start a podcast. Now, once you start that podcast, what are some things you should be consistent in order to repurpose your content, in order for you to reach more people, and also so you can be consistent in having content in order to put out there on LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, your website. These are great ways to do that. So I'm excited about it. Let me know if any of this helped you, or if you are looking to start a podcast, reach out to me. Let's talk about that. But yep. That's it. So those are the 7 things. This will be a blog post that you can go check out at Hetty.media. I'm going to make this a blog post. And some of these I'm going to make as reels. I'm going to do reels around just specific things, like maybe talk about what a blog post looks like out of one of my podcasts. And again, there are some examples of that on my website, Hetty.media. Check me out on Instagram, Hetty.Coleman. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, Hetty Media. I can't wait to be able to connect with you and see how I can add value to you in helping you start that podcast. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for hitting that play button. As always, go win.